listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the NFL Week 1 preview for Thursday, September 5th, 2019. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, here we go. Games that count. No more preseason. No more nonsense. Let's get you the numbers. Let's tell you where the numbers are moving. Let's dive in. It's week 1 of the NFL season. This should be great fun. Brian Blessing and Bruce Marshall. We are ready to rock and roll. Let's start on a Thursday night, Bruce, as we are excited to kick off a new season with a bit of an oddity and a bit of the same thing. Green Bay and Chicago are accustomed to playing on opening week, but generally the Thursday night game, it's the Super Bowl champ that's playing in there. Not the case this year, but these two teams played 2 great games last year. I think this is the new Baltimore-Pittsburgh, where literally, Bruce, you just hang the home team 3. That would be my best prediction for what will happen this year, is that when the Packers host the Bears, the Packers will be -3.
Sounds about right to me, and yeah, it's a good analogy. And but the games will probably end close too. And then you're going to do no worse than a push if you're taking the dog here. But mention of 3 is pretty interesting here, because if this thing comes down to a field goal tonight, I'd rather be Green Bay with Mason Crosby, my guy, trying to kick the winning field goal than Chicago with some of the place kicking adventures it has had. But again, if it gets to that point, there's a lot of football before we get to that point. And it was another Aaron Rodgers free August in Green Bay. So no idea how he's going to look in this new Matt LaFleur offense, or how he and LaFleur are going to coexist. We know it was bumpy and a lot of friction with Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. So that's what you have to watch. And I think that's actually the development to watch in the whole NFC, because if Rodgers can click with LaFleur, Green Bay becomes a factor again. And Chicago is trying to replicate what it did a year ago, but it's a defensive mastermind, and some of the staff left to Denver, and Vic Fangio left and took Ed Donatel with him. A lot of pressure on Chuck Pagano to replace Fangio, so I'm not sure it's going to be as easy this year for the Bears.
And the one thing I would say, the thing to watch the most, at least what I'll be doing in this game, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. They didn't get him a whole heck of a lot to help him on offensively, but you know what? Maybe they did. And the master plan was they went nuts in the draft, free agency, and addressed the defense. And if you think about it, if this defense is good and they can produce 3 and outs and they can get Rodgers on the field more, it will wear defenses down. So in a weird way, it really does help Rodgers, but it's not individual guys that help them. I'm going to be watching very closely. Is this Packers defense much better? And Jones is a nice running back. But Green Bay, if Green Bay can ever get a run, and the running game for both teams, we'll see what Montgomery can do. But if Green Bay could ever establish the run, how dangerous does Rodgers become? And they haven't been able to do it for a boatload of years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's going to be important in the defense for sure, too. I mean, they made some changes there. They moved out some guys, who'd been there, like Matthews, and they're, retooling on that side. That's going to be very important as well. And it's also Matt LaFleur's first swing here as a head coach. And now it worked pretty well for Matt Nagy last year with the Bears. Let's see if LaFleur can do it too. But one other guy you mentioned there is Montgomery for the Bears. It's a guy I would watch Iowa State. I loved him at Iowa State. They all loved him there too in the Big 12. Guy led the nation in yardage after getting hit. That's what you want to see in a running back. The guy breaks tackles. He could be a big time and a nice maybe fantasy guy from the Bears backfield as well.
All right, let's make it to Sunday. All of them are intriguing because we're really rolling these guys out, and most of the number 1 players on these teams just didn't play in the preseason. Atlanta and Minnesota, I think this is a huge game because I can see Minnesota, if Cook stays healthy, upsetting the cart in the NFC North, and everybody's in love with New Orleans, but Atlanta got Ryan an offensive line. They've got weapons. But this is a big one because if they can improve on the road, Atlanta could have a big season. Basically looking at the Vikings 4 and the total of 48.
Well, that's going to be big for Atlanta. They certainly haven't been the last 2 years in the regular season, 4-12 on the road versus the number And Dan Quinn knows at stake here. It's his job, and it's probably the other way for Mike Zimmer too. He made adjustments in both of his coordinators last year. In fact, he is retaking over the defensive coordinator job, which he had at Seattle before he got this one in Atlanta. And he's brought back Dirk Cutter, who had been recently the Bucs head coach and had been Matt Ryan's offensive coordinator earlier in his career during the Mike Smith era. As Ryan's offensive coordinator, Sarkisian is out. So a couple of big changes there. We'll see, how Julio Jones, after, bumpy contract stuff through the summer, how he's going to be able to contribute. On Minnesota, the interesting note here, the addition of Gary Kubiak to staff, and it's not as much a design addition for Kubiak. His recent offenses, the ones in Denver, and even before that, Baltimore and Houston, they weren't working all that well. But he is going to be a valuable buffer, I think, between Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer. And Zimmer might be a little bit of a difficult guy to work for. So I think having Kubiak there could help out Cousins. We had a 24-16 Vikings on Sunday. We'll see what happens.
Bruce, Washington, Philly. Eagles are 10. Total on the game is 45. Tough to lay double digits in any NFL game. Really tough to lay double digits against a division opponent. That's the case here. Wentz comes back. They've got tools. There's expectations if he can return to form from 2 years ago. In Washington, my goodness, it doesn't look good on paper, but it's a football game.
Yeah, there's just no love for Washington, and I think and you sort of understand it, except just drill a bit what was going on. I mean, the Redskins were in the playoff race last year, right with the Eagles, until all those quarterback injuries started to happen, and Jay Gruden kept that thing jerry-rigged together somehow, and they were still competitive even down the stretch, even when he had to go on the scrap heap to find his quarterbacks, so Sanchez and Josh Johnson. McCoy is hurting at the start of the year. It's going to be Case Keenum. You're not going to see Haskins, the Ohio State rookie, until later in the year probably. But I think Keenum's very serviceable. I don't think he actually played that bad in Denver last year. He didn't have receivers getting open. And I'm not sure the Redskins are just going to be roadkill here. I think Gruden did a very good job, and I think some of this hype on the Eagles is over the top a bit. We'll see. Wentz, can he stay healthy? That's for down the road. We know he's going to probably be in there. Didn't see much of him in the preseason here. I think it's a little too many points. Redskins are undervalued here. 23-19 Gold Sheet score forecast. Eagles, I pumped the brakes a bit on Philly, and I'm not ready to throw dirt on the Redskins just yet. I know Jay Gruden got them punching above their weight most of the way last year.
Two teams very optimistic about their seasons, Buffalo and the Jets. The Jets are 3 at home, total on the game, 40.5, 41 are kind of the consensus numbers here. What I would say from Buffalo's perspective, McCoy was released and went to Kansas City. We'll talk about that later. But they got Josh Allen some weapons. They've got a new offensive line. How that gels in week one because they had injuries in camp remains to be seen. The defense is stout. One thing I would say, there will be a play or two where Allen goes back and he can throw it 80, 85 yards, and that's no joke. And they will send John Brown deep, and Brown will dare Allen to overthrow him. That will happen. It didn't happen in the preseason, but it happened in practice a lot. And the Jets, it's going to be interesting to see Le'Veon Bell in that offense and Greg Williams. This is a really compelling game, and I think it's a big game because I think either of these teams could contend, for maybe the second wild card, and this is a game that's big right out of the gate. The one thing I would say to you, Bruce, this line's sitting on 3. I insist at some point during the week, you're going to see some 2.5s. I think Buffalo money's going to come in here. Right now, they're +3 minus $1.20. I do think this game, in some locales, you'll see some 2.5s.
Yeah, I think so. That's the way it looks like it would move. I hardly believe it could get above 3, but we'll see. I think there's value still on the Buffalo side. We've talked about these division dogs in opening week action. It seems to work in opening week, 17-4 the last 21 the last few years. Go back to 2006, it's a well over 60% play. Buffalo falls in that category this week. I think the Bills are just a year or two further along this reboot than the Jets, and it's sort of a constant reboot with the Jets that's been going on there. But I'm not sure the wisdom of bringing in a coach who just got fired in Adam Gase, even though he was in the division before. They fired their GM, Mike McCagnon, after the draft. I don't think they're purely settled there yet. Yeah, I know they added Le'Veon Bell, but I like some of those additions you mentioned on the Buffalo side, and they didn't quite get the receivers they were looking for in free agency, but Brandon Beane brought in some guys who can help. And we saw Cole Beasley turn into a very, very good possession receiver and has nice rapport with Allen from the preseason. And you're right, John Brown can get deep and edge defense Bills. So I think Buffalo's going to win this game. And, we took them in the gold sheet, Bills 24-20. I think they're going to win this thing outright.
I believe they are too, Bruce. And here's the crazy thing we'll talk about. Yeah, and then the overreaction. Oh, my day, the Bills won. And then they go home and they're coming back to play the Giants. And if the Giants lose to Dallas, and I know you like the Giants, so we'll talk about that, but it's still a tough game. But then the Giants come back home, and the number next week's already out, and the Giants are 1.5-point favorites. And everybody will be, oh, play the Bills. Well, the Giants will be, if the Giants are 0-1, they'll be playing that like a playoff game. The overreactions week to week in the NFL, I've never seen it be so volatile.
Yeah, and it's really much week 1 to week 2, and we know that there can be a lot of changes there. So, yeah, I'd caution everybody, pump the brakes a little bit and take a deep breath after week 1.
Oh, boy, I would steer clear of this. But if anything, as crazy as it sounds, Baltimore at Miami, Baltimore laying 6.5 total on the game is 39. Miami's in disarray. I'd play Baltimore. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he knows what he's doing and can pull off an upset or two, and then, he does the same stupid stuff year in, year out. But there are those games when he lights up. Remember what he did in the opening game for Tampa last year? I mean, nobody wants to lay a nickel on Miami, but watch out. I'm just saying, he drives me nuts, but watch Ryan Fitzpatrick show up.
Yeah, I've seen him. We've seen him do it before, the Jekyll and Hyde, and he's the Dr. Jekyll, the good side, often shows up for him. But Mr. Hyde always looks around the corner. And frankly, I think this Miami thing is a real mess. And when you trade away your all-pro left tackle, Tunsil, who protects Fitzpatrick's backside, he ain't going to be too happy about that. And I heard it's not too happy on the roster either with the team. Tunsil's a very popular guy. This team is tanking this year. This is a Mark Cuban-like NBA tank to get a high draft pick next year and pick one of those quarterbacks, Tua, Justin Herbert, or somebody. Brian Flores, the new coach. Listen, Bill Belichick disciples have routinely failed when they're out as head coaches. Very few exceptions. And I need to see evidence about Flores. I think this thing is a complete mess in Miami, and Baltimore goes down there. Opening week, listen, they've had another sterling August, and last year, first week, 47-3 over the Bills. I'm not sure it's 47-3, but they're going to win this game, and they'll cover the number 2.
Okay, Kansas City and the Jags. KC 3 on the road, minus $1.20 a bookmaker, 51.5 is the total. Really interesting game because I think this is a Jags team that's capable of a bounce back, and there's a love affair with the Chiefs. I would just say this. This KC thing could have been really bizarre, but they dodge a bullet out of the gate. No excuses. Tyreek Hill's there. This is a good football team, but don't sleep on Jacksonville. I think the number's right where it should be.
Yeah, you're right. And if Jacksonville recovers and Nick Foles provides some leadership, maybe. I need to be convinced on Jacksonville because once a team runs for the bus like Jacksonville did last year, and sort of quits on their coach. And now, I mean, they've changed some personnel. I'm not sure the defense has gotten better. They lost some key pieces. They have added Foles. And, are we going to get Leonard Fournette serious about football this year? Marone is in some trouble. So might Tom Coughlin be. And once that well gets poisoned, unless you clean it out completely, I'm not sure it bounces back that quick. So I'm sort of against the Jags until I see them do something here. We took the Chiefs as a key release, 31-17. Andy Reid's usually out of the box pretty quick. Huge bullet he dodged, keeping Tyreek Hill eligible and not suspension. That was the biggest development of the offseason, I think, for the Chiefs, on top of the new defense there and the new coordinator, Spagnuolo, and a lot of new faces on defense. But Chiefs we're going to go with on Sunday against the Jags.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. All right, Bruce, this is a weird one, and I'm actually going to make a decision here with San Francisco and Tampa Bay. It's been picked. Tampa Bay's won. Total on the game is 51. And there's a reason, and only one reason, I like Tampa Bay in this game. I think at the end of the year, I think San Francisco's further along. I think San Francisco's heading the right way. But you get a new coach, a guy like Arians, and you get that rah-rah deal out of the gate. And I think they'll do some decent things, but it's a work in progress. But the reason I like Tampa Bay is San Francisco is still got to improve on, winning away from home. There are question marks about Garoppolo. But the reason I like them, Bruce, is there'll be problems for Tampa Bay all throughout the course of the season. But they've been game planning, and Arians knows what he's doing. They've been game planning for this game for weeks. And I think that's a big edge sitting at home. The fact that they've had all this time to game plan for this one game, I would take Tampa. If you talk to me in week 10, I'd probably take San Francisco.
Yeah, that might work. I thought this was a very hard game to peg. Because, maybe Arians is going to be able to light a fire under Jameis Winston. I think that well is sort of poisoned too. So I'm not sure that Jameis is going to be able to get there. But San Francisco is really a mystery to me. What's going to happen here, and really how good Garoppolo is. He's coming off of a serious injury, and he started off preseason more than a bit rocky. Then he kind of straightened out toward the end, his second preseason stint. I think the Niners have had so many injuries the last couple of years. It's hard to tell what the full plate looks like, and I will find out here on Sunday. It could go either way. We lean to the Niners a bit in the sheet just because I'm kind of down on Jameis Winston. But you might be right. We had a 29-24 SF, but that's way down my list this week. It wouldn't be one of the featured picks.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Of all the games, you think you'd run away from it, but it's one of those. I got a feeling. That and Winston's healthy too. He's not a crash test dummy yet. Anyway, we shall see how that pans out. Here it comes. Money's coming in on Cleveland. There's always a betting love affair with these guys, even when they were god awful. Now they've got talent. It's the weight of expectations, Bruce. They're laying 6. The total on the game is 45.5. Tennessee is just one of these teams. They're like this utter mystery. What are you going to get? What are you going to get from Mariota? It could be really good. It can be really bad. I can see Tennessee hanging around here after all this Cleveland hype. But, the one thing about Tennessee, I think they're well coached.
Yeah, I think Vrabel did a pretty good job. And we've got we took Tennessee plus the points in the sheet this week. So that we kind of were thinking like you. Mariota, you're right. I mean, he's in the same boat as Jameis Winston. In that, they came in the same year, but this is sort of the year that Tennessee and Tampa Bay have to determine if they're going to extend the contract and really make a longer-term commitment to these guys after they've seen him. I think it's up in the air both, especially Mariota. More for Mariota just staying healthy. He's had a trouble staying on the field, and Tannehill, I think, gives him a little bit better backup than Wayne Gabbert last year. In fact, there's some people thinking that Tannehill maybe gets this job at some point. We will see. Development of note here before the run-up here to the game for the Titans, Ryan Suckup, their place kicker, is hurt. And you know how tough it is to bring in a kicker right on the eve of the season. That, if that turns into a problem, it's a real problem for a team. So keep an eye on that situation. But I kind of agree with you that this Cleveland hype, I've never seen so much hype for a team that has not won a playoff game or gotten above 500. Maybe it's justified. I don't know. My gut feel right now is that this is a pretty big job for Freddie Kitchens and all those big personalities there. And Jimmy Haslam's history hiring head coaches ain't too good. I thought this was a sort of spot where a guy like Bruce Arians should have come in and sort of laid down the law to these guys. But let's see how it goes for Cleveland when things start going sideways for them. And if Kitchens is the guy to lead them, I am hardly convinced. We had a 26-24 Browns, though, on Sunday.
All right, Bruce, tell me, am I missing something here? The money surfaced on the Panthers. The Rams were 3 on the road. They're 2.5. The total on the game is 50. Okay. We could throw all the sharp angles out, traveling cross country, playing an early game, but it's the opener. Super Bowl loser and New Orleans in the on-deck circle. We didn't see anybody for the Rams in the preseason. Can Carolina win? Sure. But the money's coming on Carolina. I just think I can see the Rams, honestly, unless I'm completely missing something here, Bruce. I could see the Rams coming in here and rolling these guys. Newton's a little hobbled. He'll be okay out of the gate. But why is money going against the Rams? Am I missing something?
I'm a little perplexed, too. I think maybe, people look at some of these technical trends, and Cam has been a good dog in his career, 16-8. The last 24 is a dog for the Panthers. But, that's with a healthy Cam. I don't know how healthy he is, Brian. He's surgically repaired shoulder. Yeah, he hurt his foot in preseason. He's everything. I mean, for them, he's one of these teams. If something happens to Newton, this whole thing goes down the drain and Rivera loses his job. I'm with you. I kind of think the Rams go in there and win. I'll tell you what, happiest guy in Charlotte is going to be Jared Goff after that contract extension he got. And dinner's on him for a while, I'll tell you that. But they're feeling good. And Sean McVay did exactly what he wanted in his mind preseason, get through this thing unscathed, give some other guys a look. That's what he did. None of his key guys are hurt. Even Gurley might be able to be healthy for once to help him out. So we took the Rams into this one 27-17.
Arizona hosting Detroit. Lions are 3, totals 46. The move on the Lions, understandable. Arizona looked awful in the preseason. But, Bruce, you tell everybody it's the preseason, and everybody's vanilla. And, yeah, their offensive line and defensive line didn't look good. But, again, they were games that meant nothing. So now we're actually going to see what Kingsbury brings to the table. Maybe they are that bad, but it ain't going to shock me if Arizona shows up and go, oh boy, they didn't look like that in the preseason. I
am perplexed what we're going to see for Arizona. I just don't know. But I think the one thing, we talk about Kingsbury and the new system and his inexperience. He does, though, have around him, I think, the most experienced NFL staff. He's got 11 guys on staff who have been double-digit or more years in the NFL as assistant or head coaches, including one, Vance Joseph, back in his element as defensive coordinator. He was head coach at Denver for the last 2 years. Now he's defensive coordinator. So, he's got a lot of guys to fall back on this staff who can help him out. So it's a very experienced staff, and I think the defense is pretty good for Arizona. I am down on the Lions. I don't think Matt Patricia is going to cut it. He's going to get fired at some point there, like all the Belichick disciples do. There are some real holes on this roster. Stafford, they won here last year when Wilkes was totally overmatched, but that was before Kyler Murray showed up. And, we took this, again, this is down the list this week for us, but we took Arizona 22-17, and we're curious, like you and everybody else, how this is going to unfold down in the desert.
And, Bruce, let me ask you about this one. You look at the number. Seattle's 9.5 against Cincy. The total on the game is 44.5. Cincinnati on paper looks like a dog's breakfast. A.J. Green's hurt. If I had a criticism about Seattle, first of all, it's a massive home field advantage. This is a perception thing for me, and I think it's right. If I had I think they can hang with the Rams. I think they're in this discussion a long time this year. But the one thing you get, we're talking about a number here, is there are times where Seattle plays up or down to the level of their competition.
Yeah, they do, and it's just if that's going to change. Now, earlier in Carroll's career, in the Legion of Boom days, they used to routinely handle these sorts of foes and numbers, but not as much lately. They did kind of retool it a bit last year. They rediscovered their running game with Carson. We'll see how Jadeveon Clowney fits in and how quickly he fits in. You would think Pete Carroll could really make good use of him, and he could be a difference maker on that defense. So I think Seattle won that late round of trades there, right, at the cut-down date, getting Clowney in here. I don't know what to make of the Bengals. I think we're going to find out soon enough if, A, Marvin Lewis was keeping them more competitive than they should have been the last 15 years, or B, maybe he was holding them back. And if it's B, then C, is Zach Taylor really going to be much of an upgrade from Lewis? I don't know. We'll find out. Not if A.J. Green is hurting early, that's a negative. But there's always a chance maybe this Sean McVay disciple is what the Bengals need to give them a jolt. I don't know. In the meantime, we took Seattle here 26-13. I think a few less questions on the Seahawks side.
All right, Bruce, the Chargers, 6.5 at home to the Colts. We know about Andrew Luck. Brissett gets a contract. I think this guy can play a little bit. I think Indy's still going to have a lot of good moments this year, but it was the big story in the preseason. But all the money on the Chargers, I'm going to steer clear of the side. I think the Colts possibly, and plus us against the world, and they rally around that. But you know what I'm looking at? I believe the total on the game is 45. With no Melvin Gordon, Eckler's a nice back. I think the Chargers can go up and down the field. The one thing they did a lot last year, they get to the red zone, Melvin Gordon was the guy that got the ball in the end zone. I could see both of these teams maybe going up and down the field, but I could see the field goal kickers getting a workout. I think I like the under.
Yeah, I can see that too. Indy's defense much improved last year. And by the way, the Chargers, they can afford to play hardball with Gordon because they think Eckler, and Gordon was sort of their go-to guy, but that's because he was on the field. They think Eckler can do almost everything. And Jackson, the Northwestern back who showed up last year in that game at Pittsburgh when Gordon was hurt and did very well, they're playing hardball with Gordon, and they think they can win without him. So we'll see how that plays. The Indy side, the comparisons to 2 years ago with the last year Luck wasn't playing, and the 4 wins, and last year when they got to the playoffs with Luck, it's not that simple. This is a much better team than it was 2 years ago. The Pagano regime was on its last legs in 2017. Chris Ballard, the GM, had just gotten there. Ballard did a great job retooling this roster. He upgraded the defense. He upgraded the offensive line. No, he didn't expect to lose Luck, but they think Brissett can be a pretty good placeholder here and maybe even be the guy going forward. I think there's value on Indy all the way around. Season wins, they've dropped him because of Luck. Brissett ain't Luck, but he's not bad, and this still might be the best team in the South. And I think they're worth a look maybe in this game against the Chargers as well, who didn't, by the way, have much of an advantage yet, have not developed one in Carson. 21-19 Chargers. Look to the Colts, can see the under as well.
I know you love the Giants. We did a seminar earlier this year. The hook is out. Giants are catching 7.5 at Dallas. My question will be, will we see Elliott, and does he pull a hamstring?
Yeah, that happens to guys sometimes who have been holding out, and now he's back in, and I don't think he's going to get a lot of work, but who knows? He might. We'll see. But even so, and listen, I'm way out there on a limb with the Giants, I know. I don't think they were that bad, and they're going to pivot the offense around Saquon Barkley. I think they're actually going to benefit from having no OBJ and the distractions he provided. Now, there's some injury problems at the receiver spot, which worry me some, but they're not playing 7 on 11 here. I mean, Eli, I think, has been sparked by Daniel Jones. Here's the other stat. Last year, the Giants lost 8 games by 7 points or fewer. Now, that might be a function of a team that just finds ways to lose, but it also says they were almost in every game. You give them this many points last year, if it's 7, or if it's 7.5, and maybe that's bumped up a bit because Zeke is playing again. Last year, they would have only lost 2 of their 16 games against the spread if you gave them 7.5. You would have only lost 2 of 16. So you got to view this in the context of the point spread, and the Giants are competitive, and I think they've got a shot to stay close again. 24-23 Dallas on Sunday.
I'm with you, bud, and I will tell you, hey, people like fantasy football. People hate fantasy football. I think it helps in terms of your handicapping. I got news for you. I watched every Giants game last year because I had Saquon Barkley as a rookie. The Giants' play calling, Bruce, was an absolute atrocity. I mean, they would get to the red zone with regularity, and then they would abandon Barkley, and Manning would throw 3 incomplete passes, and they'd settle for field goals. My God, they had the one game at the tail end. They tried 2 quarterback sneaks and didn't get it in, burned 50 seconds. They had no timeouts. And then they throw for a touchdown. And then on the 2-point conversion, Bruce, they give it to Barkley, and he flies over the pile. Why didn't you do it when you're on the 1-inch line? Their play calling was atrocious. If they can figure out the red zone, I'm with you. They were in a lot of games. They just constantly shot themselves in the foot.
They did. And that game against Indianapolis, they should have won last year late. They could have won that last game at Dallas. It was week 16. But Dallas is trying to win that game, too. Yeah, I mean, they're close, and I don't think they're going to be overwhelmed this year at all. So there could be some value on the G-Men.
All right, let's wrap it up with the high-profile game, Sunday Night Football. Pittsburgh Patriots laying 5.5, 49.5 the total. Ceremony, raise a banner, get your rings, all that good stuff. I think, and maybe this week might not be the greatest of spots, but I kind of do like Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's a mission team this year, Bruce. I think the Antonio Brown out the door thing, as great a player as he is, I think these guys are going to have some rally and cry about we didn't need him. And they've got weapons with Schuster and Washington and kids. The Bush on the defensive side of the ball, the Bush kid looks good, and Connor's a horse. I think Pittsburgh's the real deal this year.
Well, remember, the Steelers were still 6-0 last year against the spread as a dog. So they're a pretty accomplished underdog, and they've been a good dog for years. Now, the Patriots are 13-3 their last 16 reg season in Foxborough, so that counters that. But, you can make a good argument for Pittsburgh. And, by the way, I don't think they're going to miss Antonio Brown. Pittsburgh rarely makes mistakes on personnel, and they didn't go crazy for Le'Veon Bell. It worked out fine with Connor last year. They were fine to let Antonio Brown and his distractions walk out the door. Good riddance, and you're right. Washington will step into the role with Schuster. And by the way, Schuster caught over 100 passes last year, so he's big time. The question here, though,
watch out for James Washington.
Yeah, Washington will move into the role opposite of Schuster, and he showed in preseason he could be the real deal. But for the most part, Belichick has had Tomlin's number. Steelers did win in Heinz Field last December, but Belichick had beaten him 5 straight before. The only game Big Ben has ever won at Gillette Stadium was in 2008 when Brady was hurt. So there's history on this side, suggests the Patriots, and that's what we're going to look at in this one, 31-23, and it might go over the total as well.
All right, and then the Monday night doubleheader, Houston at New Orleans. New Orleans laying 7, total 52.5. Last time they gathered at home, the controversial call against the Rams. It's a Monday night game in New Orleans. It's a brutal place to play. I don't know what O'Brien's doing with Houston sometimes. His play calling suspect. You know what? Big picture, Bruce, it'll be interesting to see New Orleans with life after Mark Ingram. And that may sound nuts because Kamara's an electric guy, but that ability to run the football as Breeze gets older made that a real efficient offense. If Kamara, I'm not buying Latavius Murray. If Kamara had to be this every down back, I do think New Orleans has to throw it a lot more than they've done in recent years, where it was more of a run team. I mean, as great as it was having Breeze, they ran it down your throat. Ingram's not there anymore. Well,
that could be, and we will see. And also, the Texans think they addressed a real void when they added Tunsil in from Miami right before game 1 here. Now, if goodness knows if there's ever a team that needed some help protecting its quarterback, it was Houston. I mean, after Deshaun got sacked 62 times last year, I mean, he took more punches than Tex Cobb did in that 82 fight against Holmes at the Astrodome, So, but I don't, New Orleans defense is fine, and I think Breeze will be able to exploit absence of Jadeveon Clowney and his playmaking ability on the Houston defense. He was a unique talent, and he's not there anymore. And I'll take Peyton over Bill O'Brien, although technically there's more of a case maybe for Houston here. I think the Saints are really champing at the bit to erase the bad taste of that NFC title game last year, and they'll do it at home here. 30-17 New Orleans on Monday.
All right, and we wrap it up. The get-out game, it's a division game. Paper should be a really good game. Denver at Oakland. Pick. Total on the game is 43.5. I'm an old-time Bills guy. Bruce is all the way back to the AFL following the Broncos. I'll say this to you, pal. The hard knocks thing where you get to focus and see what's going on behind the scenes. There's an impact to that. People watch these guys. Oakland's already a public team. And the hard knocks thing, for the most part, makes everybody look really good. I think Denver walks in here and wins this game. Flacco ain't setting the world on fire or scaring anybody, but he's a veteran quarterback. And honestly, I think Denver's defense is better. I think very sneakily, Denver just walks in here and gets the cake.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, not that August means much, but when the Denver first-string defense was out on the field, they looked airtight. And I think Flacco, if nothing else, brings a little bit more gravitas to Denver at quarterback since they've had in the post-Manning era. And we'll see. Now, Denver's going to have some problems if Flacco gets hurt. When you've got to go out and find your backup quarterback off the waiver wire before the season, that's a problem. And their depth on defense was exposed in preseason. That doesn't really, none of that comes into play here on Monday night unless Flacco gets knocked out of the game. I agree with you. The Raiders, there might be much hype, but I'll tell you that the number here has been moving Denver's way. And there's some spots around town where Denver's a favorite now. And this thing opened in the summer with Oakland, 3.5. So they've been betting Denver for a reason. They like what Fangio's done with this team. And we talk about an upgrade in the sideline. We'll see about Fangio. He's never been a head coach before, but I can't imagine him not being an upgrade from Vance Joseph. 22-13 Denver. Also note Broncos were under 9 straight to close the season last year, and they've been under the last 4 against the Raiders the last 2 years.
About many a Sunday, Bruce and I watched football together, and many a Sunday as he would watch the Broncos in the Vance Joseph era, Bruce would pour himself a vodka and Pepto-Bismol.
Yes.
I'm joking. I've never seen Bruce throw down vodka. But Pepto-Bismol, yes.
Yes, Pepto-Bismol for sure.
Buddy, you're the best. The Gold Sheet is exceptional information. We can't thank Bruce enough. We're excited. We're just starting a brand new NFL season. Glad to be with you from Las Vegas.
Let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At Betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling. An approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.